I'm Matt Carey, documentary editor at Deadline.com. Welcome to the Deadline Studio at Sundance. We are here with the director and the star of the documentary, Marlee Matlin, Not Alone Anymore. Shoshana Stern, the director, Marlee Matlin, the protagonist of this film. You are premiering in U.S. documentary competition. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
For Marlee, why was it important for you to have a deaf director make this movie about you? That's essential, really.
Simply the reason was to have a deaf director is because clearly you have a deaf lens. Being that, I totally believe, and no offense to hearing people who might not have a complete understanding of why I'm saying this, but because Shoshana has a total and complete understanding of how to frame my story, my upbringing, my experience, how I navigated through life, as well as my personal and my career and what I went through. So to have, it's through my eyes essentially. So Shoshana as a director understands my language, understands my culture, and it's simple as that.
Shoshana, I have never seen a film made in the way that you have made this film. It's very intimate. It really allows us, the hearing people, or I'm sure people in the deaf community, to understand Marlee's experience. Can you talk about your approach and how you wanted to make the film so that it's not done in a way that other films about the deaf experience have been done?
When I found out that I was lucky enough to get this job, it was because of Marlee. It was because of her idea. Most of the times it's the other way around. A director will approach a subject, but Marlee knew that she wanted a deaf director. And I thought, oh, really? I'm getting this job? And so I started to watch a lot of different documentaries. And there are so many wonderful documentaries out there. But I started to think, Marlee's story is different. And all documentaries for a long time have been sound-based. They're usually used with voiceover. The director is behind the camera, and we couldn't do that with sign language. My favorite moments in the documentaries that I watched was when the interviewer catches the person off guard and kind of says something from behind the camera and has a wild line. And I wondered, how would we do that if we were communicating in sign language? And I thought I really had to flip form and try to imagine what a visual-based documentary would look like. And then realizing that ties into this greater theme of the film, which is deaf people are often born alone. 95 to 98% of deaf people are born into hearing families. And she shares that experience. And I think it's so nice for Marlee to not have to be alone on a screen anymore. I'm there with her. I'm sharing space with her in the interviews. And so that's where it all comes from.
Marlee, of course, you were the first deaf person to win an Academy Award. And people forget how young you were. This is your first motion picture role. And you got, as we see in the documentary, you got the weight of the world put on your shoulders. You say in the film that I don't want to be the president of deaf people, but in a way you were thrust into that role to be the chief advocate and explainer of the deaf experience to America.
You're absolutely right. When I won the Oscar, not being in the quote unquote know of how to really how seriously the deaf community was desiring accessibility for the longest time, not knowing myself all that history, being so young, not being clued in to what it's like to be in the spotlight, to have the advantage of being in the media's eye, and then just thrust and then asked to talk about it, what we need as a community. And I'm thinking, okay, well, how do I go about doing this? So that's why I was completely off guard. I didn't want to be the president of the deaf community. People were saying, help me, guide me. And then they got mad at me, and then they loved me, and then they got mad at me, and it went back and forth like that. So I tried to navigate as best as I could.
In terms of how Marlee navigated it, it's quite remarkable how well she did, given all of that pressure. We see in the film how critically important she was to bringing closed captioning, making that a reality and open so much to deaf people that was closed off to them before.
Yes, one of the bigger themes in the film is also that idea of forced advocacy. I it's happened to Marlee, and as someone who is so young, I saw myself represented in her for the first time, and I saw that now, they're like, you have to advocate for all of us, all of the deaf community. And now we do have a small but growing community, growing village. But I do see that idea and that concept of forced advocacy, it's still there. I know a lot of times when there are people from marginalized communities that aren't in the majority communities are often like, now you from the minority, tell me what it's like for you as the other. And I think now it's really time to move past that and let them just speak about their human experience rather than having to speak for a whole community. So I'm happy you do feel like that came through. It was really important to us.
Marlee, you've written before in your memoir about your experience with William Hurt, who, of course, was your co star in Children of a Lesser God and your romantic partner for a couple of years. That's getting a lot of attention right now as the film comes out. It sounds like you've had a real evolution in your thinking of what that relationship was like and the physical and emotional abuse that you suffered from him. I have to say personally that William Hurt certainly seemed, at the very least, like a real bully. But you were physically beaten in that relationship. This was an abusive relationship.
Listen, I was young. I didn't know really any better. I didn't understand what was wrong. I wasn't able to process what was right at the time. No one explained to me about domestic violence. I didn't understand even the concept or the word, whether it even existed. I had to find out by myself. And so I entered myself into rehab. And that was the moment where I was able to grow up, and in fact, grow up very quickly. And William Hurt, being my co star and my lover, was intense. And it was just a very complex relationship. And funny enough, I was a huge fan of his before I met him. I mean, he's a brilliant actor, I have to say yes. And he continued to be. I still think of him in that way. I think he's brilliant as an actor prior to the film that we did together. And yet, we'll always have this history together, and no one can ever change that.
Yeah.
I do think as well, just as a young woman, seeing what you had to go through, I do think there is a history of how that has been talked about. The words that people forced you to use, forcing you to say, he did that, but he's a good actor. You were forced to say that. And so for me, watching you be re-traumatized again when you're brave enough to come out with your book and people just sat there and said, hey, how was the sex? I'm really curious about the sex. Like, do you think that happened to you because you were deaf? Those questions. Re-traumatized a second time. And to me, that's almost worse. It is. We really, all of us, need to find better words, use better vocabulary to contribute to people and take that responsibility. We need to take responsibility for ourselves, how we view and think about people in general.
The subtitle of the film is Not Alone Anymore. And that plays in many different ways. One of them is you are not alone anymore in being a deaf Oscar winner. But as we see in the film, Troy Kotsur, who won the Academy Award for his performance in Coda, your co-star, he would not have been in the film without you, Marlee, insisting that a deaf actor play that role.
Absolutely right. I couldn't imagine having somebody hearing play deaf. I can't. I can't because, and I know for sure that if there were a person playing deaf, I would have had to been traumatized again with the deaf community saying, why did you let that happen, Marlee? And I would have been blamed. But then again, this time, if it would happen again, I would definitely be the one of those individuals who would be, who would not let that happen again. But I don't want that to happen again. So that's why I said, look, if you put a hearing person in, I'm walking off the film. I'm walking off. Simple as that.
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit, Marlee. She never does.
I love her.
Yes, because of you, but you also knew it was
I didn't
time.
want. I don't want to sound like I'm on an ego trip.
No, entitled. I understand. I will have an ego for Marlee. She has an extraordinary instinct. She's had to. I always say, like, I always feel like, oh, Marlee, she's just been crawling through this jungle, whacking down trees because she was the first. That's how she's had to make a path for herself. She had to know where to go. She had to have some sort of instinct. She is in touch with herself. She can't explain it because she hasn't been able to have like a bird's eye view and to see the bigger picture. But I have because I've been walking down the path that she already made. Her instinct, she knew it was wrong, and it is time. It is time. And she didn't just do it for herself. She was doing it for everyone. She did it for the community that she always has supported and will continue to.
It's hard to get to take credit for it, really, for me.
Understandable. We see in Children of a Lesser God, you were a new young actress. You've not only held your own against William Hurt, an extraordinary talent. I mean, you more than held your own. What I want to ask Shoshana is, has Marlee been able to explore the full breadth of her talent? We see her in the film directing. We see some of the roles. We remember Seinfeld. We love that. Has she been given the opportunities to fully express her artistic gift?
No. I think there's like one line in the film that maybe got lost. She says, from the best of her memory, with Coda, that's the last time that she's acted. Can you believe that? She hasn't had any offers since Coda. And I think that sometimes that can be a con when someone really becomes larger than life in a way. People see Marlee and they see Marlee Matlin, and then they forget how talented she is. She needs work. She hasn't had any offers since Coda. She hustles all the time, and people think that she's just working all the time, and she's not. She could do anything. Marlee is funny. She's dramatic. She could host stuff. She could do anything. I don't know what's wrong with people out there.
I can say I do have a lot to offer. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
A quick question about someone who's important in your life that I did not know about, Henry Winkler. He recognized your talent when you were a teenager.
That's true. I met him when I was 12 years old. And from day one, we just clicked. We connected. And we continue to do so till today. He's just like a father figure to me. And he's the one who always says to me, yes, no, giving me advice. And I mean, he's available for me 24/7. And I tell him I disagree. I tell him I agree. I ask him why. I tell him, yes, please explain it to me. And he's there for me. It's as simple as that. I really am fortunate to have him in my life.
Shoshana, what can you tell us about distribution plans for the film?
Nothing. We need somebody to buy it.
Yeah.
We do. We are very fortunate that we have PBS on our team. And I know that a lot of films haven't been as lucky as we are to have a place that we do know we're going to be able to show the film. I know that PBS is showing our film. The film is also for sale for a theatrical and streaming version. And so I hope that will happen.
Anyone out there?
All right.
Anyone?
Anybody?
Hello?
Well, it's a magnificent film. It's a unique film. Thank you so much for being with us in the Sundance-studio to discuss Marlee Matlin, Not Alone Anymore. Shoshana Stern, the director. Marlee Matlin, the Oscar-winning actress. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you.